Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge.
Welcome to Season 4, my friends, of the Pilates Lounge podcast. This is a space for movement lovers, Pilates educators, and Pilates professionals who want to think a little bit deeper about the work we do. My name's Katie Crane. I've been teaching Pilates for over 20 years, and along the way, I've worn many hats. Studio owner, teacher trainer, mentor, and lifelong student of the work we do. I'm also a surfer, an adventurer, a mum, a busy wife, and someone who believes that movement is by far more than exercise. On this podcast, we talk about Pilates as a practice, not just what we do on the mat or on the equipment, but how Pilates shapes the way we move, teach, lead, and live our lives. We explore anatomy, health, business, culture, and the evolving identity of Pilates in the modern world. This is a place for honest conversations, lived experience, and perspectives that respect both the lineage of Pilates and the people practicing it today. So thank you so much for being here. Let's dive into the episode. Hi everyone, it's great to be here. My name's Katie Crane, the Pilates professional. I thought I'd jump on today because I just actually got off of a Zoom call with my beautiful students in Queensland. Hope you're all listening. This will actually be a great recap for you if you are. So I've got students in Queensland. Obviously, I'm in Northern Territory. And so I go down and spend time with them, but we're kind of part way through the course. So we jumped on a Zoom call today to check in, see how everyone's going and what type of questions they've got. So this is something that came up that really got me thinking, and it's super important that we have this conversation together as Pilates professionals, as people who may be learning how to become a better Pilates professional, or maybe you're just newly started in your Pilates professional training or teaching. So this was the conversation. One of the instructors asked, why is it that when I sometimes go to a class, the instructor isn't offering a regression or a modification on an exercise that I'm not able to do? So this instructor hasn't done a heck of a lot of Pilates. She's still building strength. She's still building her repertoire in her own body. So when the exercises on the reformer or probably even on the mat aren't accessible to her yet, she can't perform them. And this is not uncommon. This is normal in a class situation that you have a group of different bodies with different capabilities. Now, one thing to flag is I know that there's some studios who have classes that are open to everybody, so they don't have class levels. Well, other studios have class levels. But the thing is, even if you do have class levels, you will always get people in your class who are not up to the standard of other people in that class. Maybe you've been teaching some people the repertoire for a long time. They're ready to do some more intermediate moves. Maybe you've got somebody who hasn't been at the studio for long or hasn't been practicing for long, but they either perceive that they're good for the class or they're just not quite there yet. That's totally normal. But I asked this student, so when in that class and the instructor is not offering a modification or a regression and you cannot do that exercise, what do you do? So she said, I either go back to the exercise that we were doing before or I just wait it out. I'm like, what? You lay there and wait? And that's nothing against this student. I mean, she's ultimately a customer, right? She's a client in that class. But she said, well, and so I said, well, hang on, to tell me, if you're saying that you go back to an exercise, so is that exercise that you're going back to, is it the exercise that would lay the foundation of the exercise that you can't do? And which is what I kind of thought would happen. She said, no, not necessarily. It might be a completely new exercise. So say you're going from feet in straps to short spine or long spine. You can perform feet in straps, but you cannot perform the long spine. So what's happening is there's no option to help her get to the exercise that she's not able to do. And that was not the exercise. I'm just giving an example. So she was like, no, well, it's a completely different exercise, of the one that she can't do. So picture this. You're in a room full of people moving through a sequence, because that's what being in a class is. And you and potentially other people in the room doing their own thing. It's like, remember on Sesame Street, one of these kids is doing their own thing and everybody in the squares is dancing the same dance, except for the one kid who's doing their own dance. You're that kid in that tune, just dancing to your own song, because nobody has taught you the dance moves. That just is a wild notion to me, that either you're doing your own thing, you're sticking to the exercise you did before, or hey, you just wait it out. Don't worry about the money that you spent coming to the class. Just hang in there, because we're going to come straight back to you in a little bit, and then maybe you'll be able to join into the next exercise. But I don't really know if you can. Let's just see what happens when you get there. So this whole experience is the difference between a good class and a fabulous class. It's probably a good class. You get to do most of it, half of it, part of it, who knows, but you miss out on some, no problem. So this is what I want to talk about today, because if you are new to teaching, or if you're training right now, this is one of the most important things you're ever going to learn. Not the choreography. It's not the flashy exercises. It's not about the flow or the burn, or how your class looks on Instagram. It's this. A fabulous class and a fabulous teacher teaches to the room, not to the choreography that they planned to do before they got to the studio. So here's the thing that maybe nobody is telling you when you start training. I'm not sure. Teaching Pilates is not reciting a sequence. The point is, anybody can learn a sequence. I could write down a class, and I could give it to any person on the street, and with enough practice, they could then recall and teach that sequence to any monkey in any room, right? But that's not teaching. Putting a class together and reciting it is not teaching. Teaching is standing in front of the room, looking at different bodies, recognizing what those bodies in the room need, and then teaching and presenting to those people in the moment. Because everybody in the room has obviously a different body. They have different histories, different capabilities. They have different days. And delivering the work to every single person in the room is the job of a teacher. It's not what a senior teacher should be doing. It's not what you should be doing 5 years down the track or 10 years down the track of becoming a teacher. This is exactly what you learn in your teacher training. A good class runs on a sequence, but a fabulous class runs the room. So when we complete our education, our initial education, the least of what we can do is, sure, you could put a sequence together and maybe that is your plan. But when you walk into the room and, oh, gee whiz, it is actually real bodies in there, and that sequence that you've written is not appropriate to the people in front of you, you need to be able to pivot on the moment and actually give the people what they need. And even if it's only one person, even if it's a handful of people, if everybody can't do the exercise or the repertoire or whatever it is that you've chosen, you need to be able to change that and serve those people, not just leave them waiting. This is not a footnote. This is the exact moment your training is supposed to kick in. So you need to know regressions, modifications, progressions, and advancements. So you need to know variations of every exercise and the intention inside the exercise, so that then that exercise that you're choosing is actually accessible to everybody in the room, or a version of it is accessible to everybody in the room. Not a different exercise, not just, hey, just sit on the bench while we finish what we're doing and then join us again. So this is really the question that separates a properly trained teacher from someone who memorized a workbook. And the question is, why do you choose that exercise, or why have you chosen that part of the repertoire in this part of your class? The question is why. So a good Pilates training course will teach you what to choose. Here's a book with a whole lot of repertoire, and here is how you create a flow class, because that's a buzzword on social media at the moment. Oh, that class had such a great flow to it. Great, of course. Good movement feels good, no doubt about it. But you know what? To get to the point of good movement doesn't always feel really good. We're trying to teach the flow process, absolutely. But if you don't know why you chose it, then you're just throwing spaghetti on the wall. So a recognized, properly built Pilates training course will teach you why you chose it. Or even better, a properly formulated course and a good educator will actually teach you how to critically think, will teach you how to use your eyeballs, look around the room, and know how to serve the people in the room. But you will know how to do that because you know why you have chosen this exercise for this student or for this bunch of students in this moment. What is that exercise asking of the body? What is this exercise require that this particular student doesn't have yet? What is holding them back? What is the regression that keeps the intention intact while removing the barrier that is preventing said student from being able to perform this? Hey friend, thanks so much for listening. Did you know that you can now find us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Pilates Professional? Now, if this episode resonates with you, please share it with someone else who would benefit from hearing it. Back to the show. And what's the progression that I can give to them when they're ready to go further? That's not decoration on top of the training. That's not just the icing on top of the birthday cake. That is the cake. So icing is really yummy. There's no doubt about it. But you can't just keep eating icing. You got to put the cake there first. So you can't just keep throwing out repertoire or keep teaching classes because they have a great flow to them. And all of your Pilates instructor friends who also did the weekend course with you can do that because they have great capacity. It's fantastic when people can do things. But what is the reason behind what you're doing? So if your instructor cannot offer a modification in real time, on the spot, for the exercise in front of them, that tells you something about the depth of what they were taught. Because you can't give away understanding that you never understood yourself, right? You can't explain why to your class. You can't know why if you don't know why. In other words, you only know what you know. And if you don't know any different, you don't know any better. I'm not putting anybody down. It's just a fact. You will only ever teach what you actually know. So this is the issue. And I'm sure I've spoken about it before, but I'm going to keep coming back to it because it's a very important issue. The cornflake packet problem. There is Pilates training built on foundation, and there is Pilates training that comes out of a cornflake packet. Sometimes that cornflake packet has a really beautiful packet. For example, I've seen teacher training programs that are put together by physiotherapists, or teacher training programs that are put together by fitness industry leaders. Those are people in their sphere, in their world, who are very well recognized. Amazing. A physiotherapist has an amazing toolkit of knowledge and is such an integral and important part of our allied health programs around the world. A physiotherapist is not necessarily a Pilates teacher or a good educator. The fitness industry, obviously the fitness industry is so important. I go to the gym, you probably go to the gym. We're all doing other things outside of the Pilates studio. This is the beauty of movement and the body. But somebody who understands fitness really well doesn't necessarily understand Pilates. So there's a difference between teacher training programming that has been built by people who obviously are connected to source, which I've spoken about very recently, who understand their lineage, who understand the anatomy of movement, not anatomy from a mechanical standpoint or from this is where those muscles are, that's where those bones are, being able to point out parts of the body, but actually how those mechanics, and I don't even like to use that word because I don't see the body as a mechanical project, but people who actually understand movement from an anatomical point, who understand movement progressions, who have done the deep work of asking why over and over and over again, and have a very critical way of thinking. Critical thinking isn't a bad term, it's a good term. You should be thinking critically all the time, and you should be questioning yourself all the time. Right. So the other type of training, the cornflake packet training, it is really great at sequencing or teaching choreography. Teaching choreography is fantastic if you are a dancer and you know everything and you know your body inside out, that you have great interoception, that you have great proprioception, that you have great control of your body. Then choreography or sequencing is fantastic. Not necessarily appropriate for the general population who are coming to learn Pilates from you. So let's be honest, the uncomfortable part, the student in the room who is not offering progressions, modifications, regressions, advancements within that room to the appropriate people, they don't actually know what they're looking at, and they don't actually know why they're teaching what they're teaching. Now, this whole scenario is a calamity, but it's not a catastrophe. And it's certainly not a criticism either. These are important conversations that we need to have. And what I was thrilled about and what I said to this student was, I am so happy for you that you picked up on that, because your training has already started to give you that critical eye. You're already processing the experience that you're having, you're observing the people around you and seeing the experience that they're having, and you're recognizing gaps in teaching, which hopefully means that by the time you become an instructor, you're able to fill those gaps because you've had good education from the get-go, because the education that you're getting is actually asking a lot of you. Now, part of the conversation that I had with these students today as they move along, so at the moment, I go back down and see them in a month, and we talked about, okay, well, how does each of you move forward? Where are you at? What do you need help with? What are your questions? And how can I help you move forward? And the consensus in the room was that they need to move past teaching just 2 or 3 exercises and start to put classes together. in ways that are appropriate and where they can start to progress and regress and know when to be doing that as well. And I could see the amount of discomfort in the room on our Zoom call, because what every trainee instructor does, and we all do it, is we teach within our comfort zone. So it can be really difficult to keep pushing forwards, to keep pushing that boundary, to move past the barriers that we give ourselves. And this is partly what should happen in your teacher training. You should constantly be stepping outside of that comfort zone. So, for example, you've learned how to teach footwork, move on from it, teach something else. And it's like learning a new language. You can only ask in the new language, "Excuse me, sir, where is the toilet?" so many times. It's only going to serve you so many times before you have to learn new sentences so that you can keep communicating in that new language. It's exactly the same when you're learning your Pilates. So, what does this mean for you right now as a new instructor, as an instructor who isn't confident giving those modifications and those regressions, as an instructor who is leaving people to wait for the next exercise because you're not quite sure what to do with them? This is what I want you to take from this. Start now. Every time you learn an exercise, ask your mentor, your trainer, what is the regression? What is a modification? What happens if somebody has sore knees? Because this seems to be a lot of work on my knees. What happens if somebody isn't able to do that particular move? What exercise comes before this one? And start to figure out, how do you layer classes? So rather than have this sequence of exercises that flow well together, you have to be able to also layer that whole sequence. So each exercise has, say you're teaching the middle of the exercise, it has a beginning and an end. So where did it come from? Where is it going? And you should be able to layer either a version of the exercise that you're teaching or regression or an exercise that would come before that. Start asking those questions. Ask what to do if the body in front of you cannot access this shape today. And if your course isn't giving you that as a standard, ask for it. If they can't give it to you, well, that tells you something. So when you observe classes and when you attend classes, because as a teacher, we should all be taking classes elsewhere. I definitely don't do it all the time. I don't do it in my own hometown. But when I travel, I always take classes elsewhere. And I actually never, ever look on the website to see, where are they educated? What certificate do they have? It doesn't matter to me. I just want to experience Pilates wherever I go, actually, so I can continue to learn through observation and through experiential learning. So watch what somebody does, watch what the teacher does when somebody can't complete something, when somebody gets stuck, when they get a little bit lost. That moment is the test. It's the whole test. Does the teacher respond with something appropriate, or do they react? So a reaction is like, just wait until the next exercise, or just do whatever you want, or just go back to the last exercise, which has nothing to do with this. That's a reaction. A response is something valuable for that student in the moment. And watch what happens in the room, because it's not only that particular student that is feeling whether or not the instructor is serving everybody. Everybody in the room notices it, and that's actually how you will build your following. It's not by those sequences that you're putting together. It's not by stealing something from Instagram that you actually don't understand the why behind and just throwing it into a class because it looked great on a 60-second reel. It's understanding the depth of the movement, the lineage of the movement, and actually, I believe that an educator absolutely must be certified in all of the apparatus to be teaching anything. So if you have had a reformer certification from somebody who is not comprehensively trained in all of the apparatus, you're missing a huge chunk of actually the why behind what you're teaching, because you don't even know. That's like sitting on a saddle but never actually putting the saddle on the horse. Well, you can't sit on a saddle without it being on the horse and say that you've ridden the horse. That saddle is just sitting on the fence and that's not horse riding. I don't know why I brought up that, but it's the same in my brain. So when you're finally, to the students out there, when you're finally the one running the room, hold this standard for yourself. If a student can't do the exercise in front of them, the one that you wanted everybody to do, it's not their failure. They're not in the wrong room. It's your responsibility to teach them. So if you don't have a regression, find one. That's your homework, not theirs. And at the end of the class, either let them know that, you know what, this level might not be for you. I really recommend that you go to the foundational level or whatever it is in your studio so that you can learn the basics a little bit better so that then you can do this. But like I said at the start of the podcast, a lot of studios just have this Pilates for everybody attitude, like all levels attitude, which blows my mind, but it is the way that it is. So if you teach somewhere like that, you need to be really good at teaching to be able to cater to all of those different capabilities in the room. But your job, my friend, was never to deliver a sequence. Your job is to make sure every single person in that room gets to do Pilates today. Not next week when they feel stronger, not in 6 months' time when they can actually join in with that piece of the repertoire or that exercise, that move. Today, at their level, you meet them where they're at inside the same exercise or the same concept as everybody else. That's the job. So I'd like to close with this. A good class runs the sequence. A fabulous class runs the room. Ask why, not just what. Choose training with a foundation, not one from a cornflake packet. And if you're the student on the mat, on the reformer, on any piece of apparatus in your Pilates studio, waiting, not able to be part of the class in that moment, know that you deserve better and know enough now to go and find it. I'm Katie Crane. This has been the Pilates Lounge. Until next time, my friends, keep your standards high, keep asking why, and keep moving. Now listen up. If this episode resonated with you, this is exactly the in-depth training that we build inside Pilates Pro Academy and the refined mentorship program teaching. It's teaching you not what to choose, but why. So come and find me at thepilatesprofessional.com.au. And if you know an aspiring Pilates pro out there, somebody who is either going through the certification process, has gone through the certification process, and may find this useful, please, my friends, share it with them so that we can spread the word of love through the Pilates Lounge podcast. See you next week. Have a great one. And that's a wrap, my friend. Now, before you go, make sure you check out the show notes. That's exactly where you'll find anything we're offering alongside this very episode and the link to subscribe to the Pilates Muse newsletter. Our subscribers receive free handouts and resources connected to the topics we explore right here. They're specifically created for Pilates professionals, movement educators, and Pilates lovers just like you. So, until the next episode,